science.
Suffice it that the blood of 1,000 men and women was spilled in these walls. Limbs twisted and broken, eyes gouged from bloody sockets, flesh burned black.
Please. You're with the dead. In death, there are no accidents, no coincidences, no mishaps, and no schemes. What you have to realize is that we're all just a mouse that a cat has by the tail.
The number you have reached, 911, has been changed to a non-published number.
Warning, the following show contains conservative posturing, radical Christian ideas, and may offend pagans, Wiccans, Islamic fundamentalists, and other unenlightened individuals. Callers and guests may be subjected to brash and offensive comments by the hosts and any other type of bullying tactics available. But that's okay. We know why you're here.
This concludes this test of the emergency broadcast system.
Tonight is Monday, February 19th, 2007.
We've been having some technical difficulties here going in and out. Let me just, I think everything's working now, though. So let me kind of reintroduce you real quick. For those of you that missed the first part of this, we've been having some technical issues in the beginning. Bill has been, Bill started out in the following the wrong path, and he got led back to the right path, and so now that's what he's talking about. Well, not really. He's going to be talking about his affiliation with some of the Mormon stuff. What he thought he had gotten on the right path, but it turned out to be wrong.
More or less a false start.
Yeah, anyway. Go ahead, Bill. I'm sorry.
Well, so anyway, two things happened. One was I had started reading like Paul's Epistle of the Romans, and, I read Romans 3 and Romans 6 and Romans 8, and all these passages about being saved, by our faith, not by all these good deeds. And then, of course, I read in Galatians 1:8 where Paul says, if I or even an angel from heaven preach any other gospel than the one I have preached, let him be accursed. And then later on I read 1 Corinthians 15 where Paul defines his gospel. And his gospel is basically that Jesus Christ died on the cross for your sins, rose from the dead, and was seen of many, and last of all was seen by him, meaning Paul. That's the gospel. Now, the funny thing is that when Mormons talk about, quote-unquote, the gospel, they don't hardly mention that. They do mention, they believe Jesus died on the cross and rose from the dead. But they also believe the gospel involves doing work for the dead, baptizing the dead, going to temples, wearing sacred garments under their regular clothing.
How can you baptize someone that's already dead?
Well, they believe they have the priesthood authority from Jesus Christ to go and find the names of dead people.
Wow.
And that's why Mormons have this enormous genealogy program. If you know friends or family that are, being hobbyists and they're into genealogy, everyone will tell you, if you go to the Genealogical Society of the Mormon Church, they have like millions of names in their database. They've spent untold millions of dollars going all over the world looking up the names of dead people. Now, I don't mean they literally dig up a dead body and dunk it in a baptismal font. No, please, not that. But it's like, okay, for example, with me, I went through for my grandfather and my great-grandfather and my great-grandfather on both sides of my family, because they had deceased, and they supposedly, now this is Mormon doctrine, they supposedly are sitting up there in spirit prison because they died without any knowledge of the gospel through no fault of their own. And so supposedly once you baptize these people by proxy, because I was actually standing in a font in the basement of the Salt Lake Temple, and there was a guy there baptizing people, and he'd say, okay, on behalf of, by the authority of Jesus Christ, I baptize you on behalf of and for, and then like my grandfather's name was William M. Jane, and then blurk in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost. I'd go underwater and come up, and then he'd do the next one. I got baptized one afternoon 42 times.
Huh.
for 42
Wow.
different dead people. So, and this is one of the 3 primary missions the church believes in. They say their 3 functions are to preach the gospel, perfect the saints, and redeem the dead. So just as an example, Martin Luther is now a Mormon. John Calvin is now a Mormon. All U.S. presidents that are dead, except for John Quincy Adams, are now Mormon.
Why is he accepted?
Well, because he opposed some of the things Joseph was trying to do, and he was regarded as an enemy of the church. Joseph Smith is, of course, the founder of Mormonism
Oh, yeah.
Okay, I
back
see.
in the 1820s and 30s.
Right.
So anyway, they have, in fact, they got in a lot of trouble a few years back because they had gotten into the records of Holocaust victims over in Europe.
Wow.
And they were baptizing these dead Jewish Holocaust victims, and B'nai B'rith went, oi, 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 you can't do that, So they stopped doing that at least. But
That's good.
But
That's really
so
strange.
you might very well have ancestors that are deceased that have been baptized Mormons by some other shirt-tail relation in your family.
Huh.
I hope not. Well,
I mean, not that it matters.
yeah, that's true. I mean, but still.
It's
you
just
know.
it's kind of just insulting to say, oh, yeah, Martin Luther is now a Mormon.
So, I mean,
There's nothing to say about it. And anyhow, I was
okay.
going to explain this. So they believe that when I baptized, say, my grandfather, who had been dead since the 50s, that up in heaven he was sitting there cooling his heels in spirit prison as a spirit being. And the 2 Mormon missionaries, who were spirit beings, would come and knock on the door of his prison, and just like the Mormon missionaries down here on earth, they wear the same black suits and, whatever. They'd come in, they'd show him the flip charts, they'd teach him the gospel, and then he would have a chance to accept it or reject it. And if he accepted the gospel, quote unquote, then he would be let out of spirit prison and go to the celestial kingdom.
Uh-huh.
So that's the concept. And they base all that on one verse in Corinthians where Paul says, what do you do with those who are baptized for the dead? And that is a mysterious verse. Not anybody really knows what that means. It's kind of an obscure passage, but you know what they tell you, if you really learn how to study the Bible and interpret the Bible, they say 2 things. Number 1, don't ever base a doctrine on just one isolated verse.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that's
And number 2, don't take an obscure verse where the meaning is obscure and use it to contradict a clear verse, which is what the Mormons have done.
Yeah, that seems to make sense. All this kind of
Anyway,
okay.
my discovery, to get back to my story, was that this gospel of Mormonism, which involved genealogy, baptism for the dead, family home evening, wearing funny garments under your regular garments, temple work, all these different things, none of that's mentioned in Paul's Epistle to the Corinthians, chapter 15. So it says, if I or an angel from heaven, in Galatians, preach any other gospel than the one that I preach, let him be accursed. So that kind of scared me.
Yeah.
Then the other thing that was problematic was, as an elders quorum president, I was sort of like in charge to a degree of the pastoral care of the people in the local ward, which is like a local Mormon congregation. And my job was to coordinate with the other priesthood holders. And let me explain something. In Mormonism, ideally, every guy over the age of 18 is an elder in the Mormon priesthood. Okay? So when you usually in most circles of Christianity, you say a priest, you think of some special dude that's ordained and wears a funny, Halloween costume or whatever, and, he's special. But in the Mormon Church, everybody, all the men, none of the women, but all the men, unless they're a real slime, if they've, got serious moral problems or, whatever, all of the men are priests. In fact, here's how it works. I think when you're 12 years old, you're made a deacon, if you're a boy. When you're 14 years old, you're made a teacher. When you're 16 years old, you're ordained a priest.
Wow.
And then when you're 18 years old, again, if you're worthy, you're ordained an elder. That's why if you see
an elder at 18.
Wow.
Pedaling around on bicycles, their little black name tags say Elder Jones of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And it's funny because half these elders, quote unquote, can't even shave yet, but yet they're considered elders. So anyhow, what was I going to say? Oh yeah, so it was my job to have all these guys go out and do what is called in the Mormon Church home teaching. And what home teaching is, it's like making a pastoral visit once a month to every family in the ward. And this is not a bad thing. This is a good thing, and it's one of the many things that the Mormon Church does right. Because if you're like a shut-in, if you're a senior citizen, if you're, whatever, they'll come and they'll visit you. They'll say, how's everything going? Do you need your sidewalks shoveled? Do you need your gutters cleaned?
That's nice.
Lawns mowed? Whatever they might need.
Yeah.
And if they need food, they will get them food. Because Mormon, they have what's called the Bishop's Warehouse, where they have tons of food that they give to their people if they're needy. And they, if they need anything they know about, they will find out about it. But it's also, when you're there, you're supposed to kind of clandestinely check up on the person. See if there's a smell of cigarette smoke in the air, because, see, Mormons aren't supposed to smoke. See if there's a coffee cup around, because Mormons aren't supposed to drink coffee or tea.
Well, I guess we're out.
See if
We're going to hell, Trent.
Yeah, on at least 3 counts there.
And then, maybe there's a little copy of Playboy magazine in the shelf of the end table or whatever. I mean, not supposed to do that either.
Oh, 4 counts.
Naughty.
Yeah.
So anyway, it's like partly you're sort of spying on them, checking up on them, but partly it's that you're helping them. You're offering to do whatever needs to be done, and then you have this little message you bring from the first president, who's like, quote-unquote, the prophet of the church, the living prophet, supposedly. So anyhow, I was going out, and because we were a priesthood-poor ward, in other words, we were an inner-city ward where there were a lot of single-mother families. We were very low on men. And so I ended up going out. I was literally home teaching like 20 or 30 hours a week, over and above my 40-hour-a-week job.
Ooh.
See, these people really get it out of you. I mean, my wife used to joke that she had to make an appointment a week in advance to kiss me because I was so busy with the Mormon Church. So anyway, in the course of doing all this home teaching, I discovered that there were a lot of people in the Mormon Church that the Mormon Church wasn't helping. They were kind of like the spiritual rejects. And let me give you one example. Do I have time?
Yeah, go ahead. Let me give the numbers real quick, though, Bill. If you want to talk to Bill Schnoebelen tonight, you can phone us here, 877-722-7382. That's 877-SCARE-U2, or locally 336-996-1596. Go ahead, Bill.
Okay. So just this is an example. There was a fellow that I was ministering to as Elders Quorum president. I won't say his name, of course. Let's just call him Clem. And Clem was a 43-year-old deacon. Now, in any other church, that would not be a problem. Remember what I said? Everybody is ordained a deacon at the age of 12 if they're a male.
Yeah.
So this guy was an adult convert to the church, but he had a problem. He smoked.
So he wasn't going anywhere else past that deacon thing until he stopped smoking.
He was stuck there. And this guy was so sweet and so devout and so zealous for the church. I mean, he was there every time the door was open. He would do anything for anybody. I mean, the Mormon Church has our ward. We were responsible for a potato farm out in the country near Milwaukee, and he would go out there every time we went out there. And he would weed the potatoes. He would help harvest the potatoes, do all of this stuff. I mean, the guy was a total fanatic, but yet he could not get to be an elder. He couldn't even get to be a priest because he was addicted to nicotine.
That's awful.
And here's the thing. I mean, anybody that's smoked knows it's a really hard monkey to get off your back.
It really is. It really is.
I mean, and I never happened to have that vice. I had some other vices, but not that one. and so I can't speak from experience, but I'm told, other than heroin, it's one of the hardest things to kick. So anyway, I would pray for this guy. I would give him holy priesthood blessings to get victory over the nicotine. I would lay hands on him to pray for him. We would fast. I would fast, he would fast, we'd both fast, and the guy couldn't get any success. He was still coming to church every Sunday with this haze of cigarette smoke hovering off him. Of course, everybody would sit like half a church away from him because he reeked of cigarette smoke. The old joke, nobody goes to hell for smoking cigarettes unless you're a Mormon. But you smell like you came from there.
Yeah.
So anyway, finally, I was having a meeting with the bishop, who was my immediate superior, and he says to me, he was literally crying. He's a sweet guy. He says, this guy, this Clem, it would have been better if he hadn't joined the church, because he knows the truth, and yet he's not willing to obey the truth. He has the light, but he's not willing to act according to the light. And because of that, he's going to end up in a lower place in the 3 degrees of glory than a Baptist or a Lutheran or a Catholic.
Huh.
Weird. He's going to end up in what's called the celestial kingdom, and that may be a whole explanation. Mormons believe there's 3 levels of glory plus the outer darkness, which is their version of hell. And if you're like kind of a low-life, lazy lout of a person, you are going to be in the celestial kingdom in eternity, which means basically a world just very much like we live in here, except you're going to live forever. But it's going to have storms and wild animals and sickness and disease and war.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah. Now, if you're a really good Mormon, but not perfect, or if you're a Baptist, Lutheran, Buddhist, whatever, who's living according to all the tenets of your particular faith, doesn't matter, Judaism, Catholicism, witchcraft, whatever, you will go to the terrestrial kingdom. Now, that is a kingdom that's like the Garden of Eden, where you'll live forever and everything is harmonious, and we know what the Garden of Eden is supposed to be like. You know,
who makes this? Who makes this stuff up, Bill?
Well, Joseph Smith made it up.
Oh, like, kind of like his visit from the angel Moroni. I mean Moroni.
That. And then finally, you got to get to the good part. If you're really, really like a perfect Mormon, if you've kept all 4,000 commandments of the Mormon Church, if you've just been out there every day of your life breaking your neck for the true gospel of Joseph Smith and Jesus Christ, if you're really, 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 really lucky, you will get to go to the celestial kingdom. This is where you will actually get into the presence of Heavenly Father, and you will become a god, and your wife will become a goddess, and you will have millions of spirit babies.
Wow.
This is Mormon doctrine.
Yeah, I've heard about this. I've heard about the spirit babies before.
Joseph Smith is nothing more than another Muhammad. You know,
yeah.
He's just another.
Many people have said Mormonism.
We need Mormon fascists.
Islam.
You know?
Mormon fascists.
Yeah, well, I have Islamo-fascists. Now we can have Mormon fascists. I don't.
Well,
I don't know, man.
There are Mormon Nazis, and we can talk about them later.
That's
okay.
great. Well, Bill, right now we're going to have to take a short break here.
Sure.
But guys, give us a call here.
Remember when paranormal radio used to be open to New Age ideas and every possible form of spiritual enlightenment?
It's a religion based on the understanding of consciousness, the understanding of nature, in particular fertility laws.
To my spirit guides are those who have passed over. And, I've always been able to see colors around people, which I've known now to be called auras.
Maybe coming to the close of one kind of psychic life, and I very much believe that this was what the Maya were really trying to talk about.
Well, we're not putting up with that. World of the Unexplained. Conservative paranormal talk. Big on God. Big on Guns. With your hosts Jay Scott and Trent Lackey. Heard Mondays, live from 8 to 10 Eastern on Planet Paranormal Radio.
All right, we're back. World of the Unexplained. Bringing back Bill Schnoebelen. Guys, call 1-877-722-7382 or 336-996-1596. And don't forget to hop in the chat room if you're phone shy. But right now, we got someone who isn't phone shy. We got a caller. It's John from Illinois. John, how you doing?
Good. How about you?
Okay.
We're doing great. Bill, you still with us?
Yes, I am.
All right, John.
All right, John, shoot.
Okay, my question is, why does NASA only allow us to see limited technology when we know that there are other highly advanced technologies out there?
Well, my opinion on that is, and of course I'm not at NASA, but I can only speculate, is there's what I call black science. I'm not using the term in a racial sense, but there's science that we're not allowed to know about that is literally decades ahead of what you might read about in the newspaper or see like a show on the Discovery Channel or something.
Right.
And this is the way it's been since at least the 1940s. And to a degree you can understand that. I mean, obviously we don't want our enemies to know what our most cutting-edge technology is. But this is even beyond that, because what my personal, from my involvement with the Illuminati and my involvement with studying the UFO phenomenon since the 1960s is that essentially some of this technology we have gotten from quote-unquote aliens. And we can talk more about what those quote-unquote aliens really are later. But just to answer your question, I think much of the technology, like, say, for example, the transistor, the microchip, and other things are actually things we've gotten from these nefarious alien beings, and they are being kept from us. Like, I have every reason to believe that, like, you know, we have things like the Stargate thing on the Stargate TV show where you can step through some kind of a portal and whoop, you're in another planet, you know, or they have things in the way of, like, this was one example. My wife was working in a medical college at the University of Milwaukee back in the 70s, and they were cloning human bodies there back then. They were making parts, and, you know, like if you needed a new liver, there it was, you know, things like that, way back, you know, 30 years ago. And so now we're hearing, oh boy, maybe someday we can, like, rebuild someone's liver, you know. Yeah, right. Man. They were doing it 30 years ago. So this stuff is available for the elite, for the people that are in the Illuminati, for the highest level political people may know about it. And, of course, the black operations people know about it. But the average, you know, scientist, if you tell them these things, they just laugh at you because they're ignorant, you know. And because of that, we languish. I mean, just like the idea of the gasoline engine, you know. I mean, they have that technology already nailed down to replace the internal combustion engine. They had it nailed down 30 years ago, but they won't do it because of the oil companies. So it's partly economic, it's partly oligarchical, and it's partly just the fact that these people like to hang on to their toys.
You got anything else for us, John?
Yeah, I got another question, if you don't mind.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, why is geometry a major importance to Freemasons?
Why is what?
Geometry?
Geometry?
Yes.
Well, of course, just for the exoteric or outer reason that in order to be a good Mason, you have to know geometry. I mean, it's one of the things, like in second degree, you are taught that's one of the important things to learn as a Mason, because obviously if you can't make a square or a right triangle, you can't build a building. But on a deeper level, there is a discipline that is called megapolasomancy, which is esoteric Masonry. It's the science of building sacred buildings that are designed to draw in demonic forces. And there's another thing, another discipline, it's called archaeometry. And that's the science of using earth-commensurate measurements to create sacred space. And so both of these things are used by Masons on an esoteric level. Now, the average Mason, I'm not saying if you go down to the local lodge number 32 F&AM in, you know, Podunk, Idaho or whatever, and ask the typical Mason, oh, what's, you know, geometry? They might not even know what you're talking about, or what is megapolasomancy? They won't know. But the Masons that have gone through this and that have been taken into the deeper levels because they've been diligent in their studies and have gone and read their own books on their own shelves in their own libraries, they understand this stuff. They understand, for example, there's a reason why Washington, D.C.'s streets are laid out the way they are. There's a reason why the Washington Monument is placed where it is. There's a reason why, for example, there is a giant inverted pentagram pointed towards the White House and the streets of Washington, D.C. All of that stuff is part of Masonic megapolasomancy.
Well, okay. Anything else, John?
Yeah, one last question.
Okay, sure.
Go ahead.
Well,
okay, why does satanic things revolve around sexual connotations?
Well, because from time, well, blatantly, because sex is fun. It's one of the most powerful forces in humanity. I mean, like it says in the book of Proverbs, you know, or maybe it's Ecclesiastes, that a man will give anything, you know, for jealousy, for love, for whatever. Even if his whole life was condemned, he would give it up for the love of a woman, and maybe vice versa. So it's a powerful, powerful urge. And the other thing is that everybody needs to realize, and this goes back to Masonry again, and also Mormonism, because basically Mormonism is built on the foundation of Freemasonry, and that's a separate discussion. But anyway, is that from time immemorial, going all the way back to at least the Tower of Babel and the Flood, religion, false religion, is built around sex. In other words, these gods, like you read about in the Bible or in history books, Baal, Astarte, Dagon, whatever, they're all sexual gods. They're all fertility gods. And if you look at these ancient statues of some of the oldest idols on earth, you'll either find a guy who's got an enormous phallus depicted, or you'll see a woman, like in the British Isles, they're called a Sheila Nagig. It's a goddess statue where she has no head, and she has these enormous primary and secondary sexual characteristics. And this is the idea that human beings worship sexuality. And since Masonry and Mormonism and witchcraft and Satanism, all four spring out of that root, if you will, they're all streams from the same basic satanic river. They all are involved with sex. They all worship sex. And that's even true in Mormonism, even though if you said that to a Mormon, they would be aghast. But yet, what do you do with a religion where the founder of the religion had 27 wives? I mean, obviously there's some kind of... Brigham Young had over 50. You know,
wow.
In fact, Granny Gear, who has gone on to be with the Lord, but she was a sweet old Christian lady who had been raised. She was, like, I think, a fifth-generation Mormon, whose great-great-grandfather was John D. Lee, who was a follower of Brigham Young. And she actually wrote a little book called Mormonism, Salvation by Grace or Salvation by Sex.
Oh, wow.
Because essentially, you can't be saved in Mormonism unless you have sex. And I was going to kind of get to this point later, but, you know, the fact is a single person is damned in Mormonism. And what I mean by that, this is the very word of Bruce R. McConkie, who wrote Mormon Doctrine. He was like the leading theologian of the last generation of Mormonism. He died like in the late 80s or early 90s. And he said that if you do not have an eternal marriage sealed in the temple, and if you do not have increase, in other words, children, of course it's awful hard to have children without having sex, you're damned.
Well, what about the kids that die?
Well, see, that's a little different. If you're a child and you die, you know, under the age of, you know, puberty or consent, you would go into the celestial kingdom, and then you would become instantly an adult, poof, and you would find a celestial wife there.
Oh, okay.
See,
Well,
Brigham Young taught that there'd be a lot more women than men in heaven. And that's probably true. I hate to say that, but it's probably true because, frankly, a lot of men are spiritual lunkheads. You know, and I can say that because I'm a guy. And if you go to any church, I don't care what church it is, you're going to see there's probably 2/3 women and 1/3 men at least.
That's true.
That's true.
You know, that's why the joke is if you're a single woman in a Christian church and you're like over the age of 40, you have more likelihood of being kidnapped by terrorists or hit by lightning or winning the lottery than you do of finding a husband. Because like there's 3 women for every man.
Oh, man.
And that's partly because women are more spiritually inclined. But anyway, so with all these different religions, it all boils down to sex. And the magic of it, you know, the fact that it seems to have such power, that of course it feels good, and the fact that you get babies. I mean, that was a miracle to our ancient ancestors that you know, a woman could poof have a baby. And that's why women were worshipped as goddesses.
That's a good point.
And that's why sex is regarded as being so sacred, because when the crops would not come out, when the cattle were not producing right, you know, no calves or whatever, or when the birth rate was dropping, this was a sign that there was something profoundly wrong in society in primitive times. And they would go out and they would have human sacrifices and freak out and, you know, cut each other up and all this stuff because anything
It just reminds me of the Wicker Man, Bill. You know.
Yeah, well, it is.
Yeah, it's if you guys haven't seen the new one, it's really crazy.
Yeah,
the
remake.
Wicker Man, not the more modern one, although they both have elements of this. You know, are very good reflections of this ancient Northern European mystery religion.
That's true. John, thank you so much for calling, by the way.
Yeah, thank you, Bill. Thank you, guys.
Okay.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
All right, take care, John.
Okay, thanks. Bye.
I got to bring this up, I mean, since we're talking about sex and everything.
Okay.
And it relates back to the whole Mormon discussion. Bill, tell us about the magic underwear.
The magic underwear.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I jokingly call it magic underwear.
Yeah.
The Mormons would be scandalized.
Yeah.
It's as sacred temple garments.
Okay.
And this is another revelation by Joseph Smith. And originally, it was long underwear that had special secret Masonic markings, like sewn over the right and left breast, over the navel, and over the knee. And you were required to wear these things day and night, 24/7, and because they were a protection. They were like supposedly almost like you're wearing the armor of God, And Mormons were taught that they would protect you.
Now, were these long John underwear type, or
long John underwear? Right now,
are they
women
itchy?
too.
Oh, what about in Florida?
Well, now let me finish.
Okay.
Now, sometime, I think it was around World War II, hemlines were rising, and there was kind of a groundswell of wishes that the prophet would get a revelation that they could have shorter underwear. Because these Mormon women are running around wearing like granny dresses. And that's why to this day, if you see pictures of like these fundamentalist cults in Utah, the polygamous groups,
yeah,
they're all the women, are all wearing long dresses.
Bill, I hate to stop you again, but we got another caller. We've got Scott from Omaha. Scott, how are you doing?
Oh, just fine. How's it going?
Oh,
great.
Doing good, Scott.
Hey, the question I had for Bill tonight is, I've personally known several Mormons and Mormon families, and they've always seemed to me very friendly, morally upright, and socially active and such. Is there a concept of like an inner circle and an outer circle, and maybe the friendly, outgoing folks that seem so moral don't know what's going on the inside? Could you talk to that a little bit, please?
Yeah, and I should say that. I'm glad you asked that question, Scott, because the vast majority of Mormons are just what you described. They're very nice people. They're godly people. They probably live as well, or if not better, than a lot of Christians. But there is an inner core. A lot of it is heredity. If you belong to an old Mormon family that came across the prairies in the handcarts, that's the big deal. That's I alluded to earlier about Nazi Mormons, and some of them are handcart people. Their great-great-grandparents came over the prairies in handcarts, and they helped Brigham Young colonize the Wasatch Valley in Utah. And a lot of these people that have been in the church for generations, they know what's going on. The higher-level people know what's going on. And we've had multiple testimonies of that. But the average person, they think they're just in this nice Christian, wonderful religion that's better. They don't really look down on other Christians. Well, I shouldn't say other Christians because they're not Christians, but they don't look down on other denominations. They just think they know more than the Lutherans or the Baptists or the Methodists do. And they're nice people, you're right, but they're deceived. And that's the key thing. They have been lied to by their leaders. Most of them don't know the stuff I'm telling you tonight. Most of your listeners are going to know more about the inner workings of the Mormon Church tonight than 90% of the Mormons, because they're kept in the dark. See, there's a maxim in Mormonism. When the leaders have spoken, the thinking has been done. In other words, don't ask questions. And so, for example, we wrote a book in 1987, me and Jim Spencer. It was called Mormonism's Temple of Doom. And for the first time, we in detail drew the connection between the Mormon temple ceremonies. We told everything that went on inside of it and how they tie in to Masonry and to witchcraft and to Satanism. And believe it or not, within a couple of years of the two books we wrote coming out, the Mormon Church, without any comment, changed about 30% of the secret temple rituals. And there was no explanation why it was done. What they did is they got rid of this whole offensive thing about a Protestant minister being a hireling of the devil. They got rid of this bizarre sequence where all these people are standing around an altar waving their hands over their head and chanting, Pele Ale, Pele Ale, Pele Ale, which in Hebrew is a slight corruption of the phrase marvelous Lucifer.
Oh my gosh,
wow.
And, we and others pointed that out, and so they changed the rituals in 1991 with no explanation. And that morning when Mormons went in to do their temple work, poof, it was changed. Never a word in public. and the people
weird.
just docilely accepted it like sheep. That's the big virtue of being a Mormon, is you're like a sheep. Wherever your leaders lead you, you follow, even if you go off the cliff and go right down into the lake of fire.
Scott, are you got anything else for us?
Yeah. Also, do you see that the membership is more passed down from family to family, or is it a chosen religion with converts?
Oh, no, it's both. I mean, you see, Mormons are encouraged to have lots of babies. They and the Catholics are the two churches that have the highest birth rates. And that's because they have this doctrine of there being spirit babies flying around up in heaven, waiting desperately to get into a nice white Mormon family. Because, see, the Mormon Church used to teach up until 1978, that black people were cursed and filthy and lazy. And so no baby would ever want to be born a black baby.
Wow.
Yeah. In fact, you ought to read some of the stuff that the prophets of the Mormon Church said about people of the African race. So anyway, and we can talk more about that if you want. So anyway, they believe that they have to have lots of children. So naturally, that helps swell their numbers. But yes, they have a very vigorous missionary program. They go door to door. I don't really know what the rate of the church growth is in America right now. I know it's growing faster overseas than it is here. But it's growing very fast. They have, last I heard, around 10 or 11 million members. And that's
pretty good.
That's pretty substantial, yes.
Scott, you got anything else?
No, that's it.
Okay.
Thanks so much for calling tonight.
Thanks, Scott.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.
All right. You know, Bill, I mean, this is the same thing that happens. People just don't want to hear the truth. I think it's what it comes down to. They're afraid of it. They run from it with everything they've got. And, I was on the Alan Handelman show the other week promoting my new book that's coming out called The Great Deception. And, I basically, I know Trent was listening to it, as well as lots of other people. It's a 100,000-watt talker out of Burlington. And he basically, I was telling him what, in my beliefs, some of these alien and UFO sightings and encounters were demonically based. And, he was basically, without making fun of me, he wouldn't let me get my counterpoints in. And then he basically comes back on and says, well, if anyone tells you that their way is the only way and not to believe anything that anyone else says, then they're the liar and don't listen to them.
Yeah.
And that made me so irate, because it was like, it's the curse of liberalism, Bill. It's part of it, because what's going on here is these people are saying we're open to all beliefs. We're open to all, we're accepting everything that everyone has to offer.
Except yours.
Exactly, but if you bring the Bible or Jesus Christ into it, then my friend, that is not what they want to hear. And it's shocking because 20 years ago none of this would have happened. Today you see blatant mockery of Christ, blatant mockery of the Scriptures.
Yeah, like that show 30 Rock, but the other one that comes on Monday nights.
What's that?
Oh, I don't know. It has that guy from Friends on it.
I don't know. I don't watch much TV,
okay.
But when I do see the stuff on TV, it shocks me to no end to see this stuff. I'm going to give us kind of a really rough segue in, Bill. But what do you think these UFO alien connection is? Do you think it's part of this? I know some people like Tom Horn and others have linked it to a Genesis 6 kind of theory, claiming that these things are like basically fallen angels, the demons that are come down.
Sure.
What do you think of all that?
Well, that's basically when I wrote Space Invaders back in 1995. That's what I was explaining to people, is that in fact within the Illuminati, it is understood that fallen angels are the aliens, and that they are in the business, because Jesus Christ said, he warned us, as it was in the days of Noah, so will it be in the days of the coming of the Son of Man.
Exactly.
And the only sin that is mentioned specifically in Genesis chapter 6, which is right before the flood, it's the days of Noah, is the fact that these sons of God, who are there are Bible scholars that claim they were a godly race of beings, but no, they were fallen angels. Because the sons of God, that phrase in Hebrew, B'nai Elohim, is only used of angels in the Old Testament. And these angels came down, they married mortal women, and they had
offspring. Yeah.
Offspring. They
Nephilim.
had babies that were awesome beings, mighty men, men of renown, kind of like, think of Hercules or Superman or somebody like that. And this was going on, and this is why the earth got so wicked so rapidly that God had to, literally drown the world.
Bill, I hate to stop you again, but I've got another caller on the line. I'm going to try to take it before the second break tonight. This is Jim from Pennsylvania?
Yeah.
How's it going, Jim?
Good. How you doing?
I'm doing great.
Doing good, Jim.
You first-time caller?
Yes, I am.
Awesome. Well,
welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you. Hey, I've got a question for Bill. Bill, I watched your Ex-Vampire series.
Oh, yeah.
I enjoyed it. There was a lot of information in there.
Good.
I was curious, are you familiar with Bishop Sean Manchester?
No, can't say that I am.
Okay.
We are.
Yeah, we are.
We interviewed him.
I can tell some people were chuckling back there, but no, what's the joke?
No, it's not a joke. It's just he claims to have staked an actual vampire in 1973 in the Highgate Cemetery.
Yeah.
Oh.
And he claims to be a Catholic bishop now?
Yeah, I think so as well.
Real nice guy, real nice gentleman. I really like to have him back on.
Yeah,
but
he's really cool.
No, that could be.
Well, Bill, my question was that Bishop Manchester claims that vampirism can occur when a demon enters a newly dead corpse. And I was curious, given your definition of a vampire, if you could comment on whether that's a possibility.
Well, yes, I would say it's a possibility. See, I never got that far because I was never dead, thankfully.
Yeah.
But, the people that initiated me into the cult of vampirism claim to be animated corpses. They claim to be over 100, the one man claimed to be over 150 years old. And whether they were, I have no way of knowing. How do you prove something like that, So they claim that, and of course, in the natural realm, there's no way this could be. But I know when I was caused to drink the blood of my initiator and gone through a very long, elaborate initiatory prelude, that I was inviting demons into me by the cartload. And I got very heavily demonized and, probably possessed. And that's so it wouldn't surprise me. I mean, we know that the devil can do lying signs and wonders.
All right, guys, if you'll hang with us through the break here, we're going to be right back. We're here with Bill Schnoebelen. Keep calling. I know the lines are going crazy tonight. 877-SCARE-U2 or locally 336-996-1596. You're listening to World of the Unexplained.
And we're back. World of the Unexplained, Bill Schnoebelen. Guys, you've been keeping the phone lines hot. We appreciate it. The phone lines, by the way, are 1-877-722-7382. And the local number is 336-996-1596. Now, our last caller, Jim, had to get off the line, but he had a follow-up question. Well, not a follow-up question, just a separate question. Talking about why extraterrestrials, why aliens require so much water. Bill, could you elaborate a little bit?
Well, as your listeners may or may not know, there's been a long-standing association between UFOs and water supplies. We had issues even like when I was living up in the Pacific Northwest where a reservoir, in the night, they would see lights over the reservoir, and the following day the reservoir was mysteriously drained of water. Now that's pretty bizarre. And of course, they've seen them. People have reported seeing UFOs coming out of the ocean, going into the ocean, creating water spouts, apparently carrying off ocean water into space. All these different things. Now the question becomes, why are these? If indeed they're aliens, if indeed they're from another planet, water is one of the most plentiful substances in the universe. I mean, some astrophysicists believe that there's just bazillions of tons of metric tons of water just in our galaxy alone floating around in space. So why would the aliens bother to come all the way here to get our water? I mean, is it because they like Perrier, Evian, or whatever? I don't know. Well, here's what I was told, both when I was involved with this stuff and later on. It kind of made sense to me in the light of the Bible. Because both Satanists and aliens, quote-unquote, are denied the saving blood of Jesus, they understand the very important thing about the theology of the blood. They understand that when Jesus Christ died on the cross, that his blood was shed and it went down into the earth. And because it was God's blood, and yes, it was God's blood. That's what Paul says in Acts, that this was the very blood of God going into the earth, because Jesus Christ is God come in the flesh, that it percolated through the entire planet. Just like the universal solvent, if you will. It went everywhere. And the entire planet became Christified, if you will, for lack of a better word. And so, because of that, these aliens believe that there are tiny traces of the blood of Yeshua, the blood of Jesus, in the water here on earth, and here on earth alone. And they believe that by taking that water, they can get some sort of spiritual virtue out of it. Just like the lady in the Gospels who was a godly woman, but she believed that by touching the tzitzit, the hem of his garment, the little tassels on his robe, that she could get virtue out of him and be healed. Well, they believe the very same thing, because they know they cannot have the blood because they're fallen angels, so instead they are going for a highly, highly diluted form, if you will, of the blood that's in the water.
Let me ask you a question, Bill. I know this is this is going to be a really strange question, but it's one that I've often wondered myself. You know, if one of these fallen angels were to repent in Christ's name, would they be saved? Would they come back into his glory, or is it something that they can't do?
Well, that's something that the Bible is silent about. But and here I'm going to put on my former Catholic priest hat for a minute.
Okay.
Thomas Aquinas, who was a great philosopher and a great theologian, he claimed, and he was drawing upon Aristotle, now this isn't biblical, but it makes a certain amount of sense. He claimed that because angels have a pure, unclouded will, and had, just like Adam did. Now notice, Adam was not allowed to repent, was he?
No.
He ate the fruit, that's it. He's out of the garden, bam, fig leaves, the whole bit. Well, angels are even more so, because they have an intellect that's unclouded by sin, and furthermore, an intellect that's unbounded by a corporeal body. Angels have a spirit body, like kind of a resurrected body, for lack of a better term. So therefore, their will was indomitable. And once they made that choice to turn from Heavenly Father and to sin, there was no going back, because there was no excuse. Just like for Adam, there was no excuse.
Yeah.
And so my personal thought, and again, that's only something you kind of adduce from the Scriptures. You can't really, see it there in black and white. But that if an angel falls, they have no hope at that point. They're sunk.
No, I've got a question from the chat room here. I'm gonna preface your answer with mine. It's from Scott in Omaha again. It says, it's interesting to hear how this stuff fits into Christianity. How do we know the Bible isn't just a bunch of hooey written and compiled by men through the years, myths, fairy tales, legends, etc.? Now, Scott, first of all, let me tell you that the Bible's the most translated book, and it's been proven over and over to be historically accurate. It's been proven over and over again. There are over 400 prophecies that were fulfilled by Jesus Christ, and he's the only one that could do it. And these prophecies that he fulfilled were, in many cases, it's not just someone being at the right place in the right time. It's you had to be there and the right place at the right time, and had to possess all of these characteristics and qualities. Otherwise, you wouldn't measure up. And he's the only one that could. Go ahead and take it from there, Bill.
Well, yes, I would totally amen to that. And there's three things I tell people to look at about the Bible. Number one, you mentioned the prophecies, and not only with Yeshua, with Jesus, but the whole Old Testament is full of hundreds of prophecies, most of which have been fulfilled to the letter. For example, like somebody I think Josh McDowell put this together with a statistician, and if you look at the odds of the prophecies surrounding just the day of the crucifixion of Christ, that the odds of them being fulfilled, like you say, by a man in his situation, who was of the lineage of David, the seed of David, etc., it would be 1 in 10 with 157 zeros after it.
You know, I'm gonna interrupt you just for a second there. Josh McDowell's written a couple good books about this. One of these is Evidence for Christianity, and I think his latest book is New Evidence for Christianity. You should check that out because it's got a lot of stuff in there. Go ahead.
Evidence that demands a verdict. I don't know if that maybe.
That's one of the books he's written as well.
Right. It's because he was a fellow who was like this wiseacre grad student at Berkeley who was trying to prove the Bible to be a lie.
Yeah, and he went out and he found out he couldn't do it.
Studying himself right into being a believer. And here's the other thing. If you look at you're right, the Bible is the best attested, the best documented ancient manuscript. You know, there's over 5,000 copies of the New Testament out there, extant, and they all agree, 99%. The other thing is that you look at the way the Bible has changed people's lives. You know, you can't point to the Quran and see how it has changed people's lives. You cannot point.
Oh yeah, you can. You can show how it makes people put on, strap on dynamite and blow people up.
But that's not a good thing, And undoubtedly, there are Muslims who have.
Who are peaceful.
I know that I've heard stories of like black toughs in the ghetto who have become black Muslims or whatever they call themselves now, and they've turned their lives around, and that's fine.
Yeah.
But they're still lost as a golf ball in a wheat field. They're still going to hell.
True.
But the point, I guess, is that if you read the stories of some of these saints down through the years, from the Apostle Paul on, and even me, I'm not even worthy to stand in their shadow, but people who were incredibly messed up lives, who just miraculously had their lives turned around virtually overnight by the power of reading that book. I mean, no other book is like it. And, of course, the fact is that Satan has been hammering on it for over 2,000 years, and the hammers keep breaking, and the Bible still stands.
And one thing that I want to say, Bill, it's my new book. I keep pimping it here, but the Great Deception. I talk in a lot of detail about how I believe we're living in a different age now than what some of the other believers, not only the believers lived in, the disciples and the people that got to see the miracles firsthand, or even that middle age where it was based more on faith alone. But I think we're living in an age now where we're going to see, and we've already seen it, with Israel becoming a nation back in 1948, but we're going toward that place now that the Bible talks about being the end times, and you can see this every day. You can see it in all kinds of things, these prophecies being fulfilled in front of your eyes. If that doesn't tell you that it's true, there ain't nothing else going to.
Yeah.
Anyway, I got another question from the chat room. Isn't the King James Version the pure Holy Bible?
Well, that's what I believe. Obviously this is a controversial discussion, but I think that of all the Bibles that are out there, and there's hundreds of them now. Do we really need 450 Bible translations in English? So many of them are flawed. So many of them are full of heresies. Like even in the NIV, which is everybody's favorite Bible. No, not really, because the King James still outsells it. But the NIV has heresy in it. The NIV teaches that Jesus' father was Joseph, right in Luke chapter 2, and that's a heresy. Now, do you want to have a Bible? Here's what I tell people. You say, oh, well, that's just one thing. Well, the problem is it only takes 1 or 2% poison to make rat poison. The other 98% is good food, but it still kills the rat because, see, rats are very intelligent. They can detect just a tiny amount of poison in their food. Now, I hate to say it, but a lot of Christians are dumber than a rat because they will look at the NIV or the NAS, which is basically, the NAS is essentially a Jehovah's Witness Bible.
Uh-huh.
It's virtually identical. The New American Standard is virtually identical to the Jehovah's Witness Bible, except, of course, it doesn't use the name Jehovah.
Well, what do you think about the new King James translation?
Well, it's a whole lot better, but it still has its problems.
Yeah.
And I tell people this is something you have to pray about, but if you look at the preface of all of these modern Bible versions, every single one of them, none of the translators believe they had the very words of God in their hand.
Huh.
None of them did.
Bill, let me
say, oh, well, it's only the original autographs that are inspired.
Well, I tend to agree. I tend to agree with you, Bill. And the other thing, my whole beef about the translations even though supposedly it facilitates a better understanding. Oh, okay.
Go ahead, Drew.
Yeah. Anyway, it facilitates better understanding of supposedly of what's going on in the Bible. You take so much of the original beauty and poetry and well-written verse that's in the King James, and I think the King James is the best. It is just so well written. I mean, not well written, but so well translated and so well put together that there's a lot of really powerful verses and passages in there. That's just my whole take on it.
Everybody agrees it is the easiest Bible version to memorize.
Yeah, guys. I'm sorry, Bill.
And it sounds really cool if it does. I mean, it's got that old ring to it that that brings you there.
Yeah, guys, you want to talk to Bill? Call in 1-877-722-7382 or locally 336-996-1596. I had to throw those numbers in real quick.
Yeah, please call, guys. The phone lines have died now. 877-SCARE-YOU-2. Another one in the chat rooms here. What do you think of this new idea of 2012 and the end of the world, Bill?
Well, it's not a new idea. It's been around for decades, if not centuries. Well, it started out with a whole Mayan calendar thing, and there are other groups out there that have been saying that is, in fact, even we in the Illuminati, when I was in that stuff, we were taught that would be the absolute last point at which the world could exist, was the year 2012. So that's what the devil troops believe. They believe that they've got to get Armageddon started before 2012, before the balloon goes up, or else they'll be out of luck.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying that's true. I'm just saying that a lot of New Agers, and of course the people that follow the Mayan calendar believe this, and some prophets have said it, and not prophets in the Bible, but like Edward Casey was indicating.
Edward Casey I believe Edward Casey was a demon-possessed man. I really do.
Well, yes, but yet he did get a lot of stuff right. And yet he got a lot of stuff, like he, for example, prophesied that California would fall off in an earthquake in 1996, and of course, obviously, California didn't do that. So, but the point is that among many esotericists, New Agers, witches, whatever, they think some big deal is going to happen in 2012. Now, some others are saying, it's going to be a transformation of consciousness. It's not going to be the end of the world. It's going to be end of the world as we know it, quote unquote.
Yeah, I've heard that.
And of course, there's some UFO cults that believe something's going to happen in 2012.
Do you think there are various powerful organizations, like you say, the Illuminati, if they believe that this is the case and they have the power on cloud, do you think they're going to try to make a move to make it happen, even if they know that that's not going to be the case? I mean, are they going to try to do something? I don't know what. But
the funny thing is, they tried to do that in 2000. There were all sorts of mechanisms in motion that I knew of, because the things would happen in 2000 that would be earth-shattering, and of course nothing happened. The closest thing that happened that was earth-shattering was a year later, almost a year,
September 11th
later, when 9/11 happened. But that also was in the mix. So it's these guys can make all the plans they want, but anytime he wants to, God can kick over the chess table and say, sorry, boys, game's over.
Like I tell everyone, our God can beat up your God.
Yeah. You can't engineer Armageddon.
Now, let me ask you, what do you think of this? This is a question I've wanted to ask you, and I didn't know about it at the time I had you on previously. I've heard of this thing called the Bohemian Grove. Are you familiar with this, being a former ex-Illuminati? I mean, can you tell my listeners about this and tell me about it? I've seen this supposed secret tape that Alex Jones got when he snuck in and called these people.
Genuine to me.
Yeah, it did.
Yes. The Bohemian Grove is this elite club that virtually everybody who's anybody in politics on the national level belongs to. I'm sorry.
Bill, you with us?
You there?
Yeah, we heard a crackle there. Okay, you're still with us.
Yeah, that's okay. Anyway, it is like this secret place up in, I think it's in Northern California, where these guys go several times a year, and women too, and they participate in these bizarre rituals. There's this giant stone owl which is like, 25, 30 feet high, and they dance around it. They perform mock human sacrifices. They dance around in robes and naked, and, and the thought of some of our heads of state dancing around naked around a giant owl is just too horrible to contemplate, but there you go. And it's a very secretive place. I think, Alex Jones is one of the very, very few, if not the only person, that's been able to get in there and to shoot, albeit rather grainy-looking images of some very weird stuff going on.
Oh, yeah, you see all these people in these cloaks and all these ceremonial New Age Wiccan pagan garb around this big statue of supposedly Moloch or Molech, however you pronounce it, the Old Testament deity, and they're all they're doing a mock sacrifice on a mock child. I mean, these are people that are in power in our government.
With Walter Cronkite as the narrator.
With Walter Cronkite as the narrator, yeah.
Man.
And Nixon had said, what did Nixon say about it?
Faggy goddamn thing.
Oh, okay. Well, we're not going to use that language, but it's the most faggy GD thing you could ever imagine. With that San Francisco crowd, I can't shake hands with anybody from San Francisco. This is what Richard Nixon actually said. So,
wow.
Oh man, you guys should look on the internet for that Bohemian Grove.
He's a good Quaker boy, you gotta watch.
I went to a Quaker school actually, as well as Chuck here.
We have a number of Quakers here in North Carolina.
Some of them are very, very fine people.
And they just told us they wouldn't have our show on their station because our viewpoint was what was it again, Chuck?
They let me down, man.
Oh, they let me down too. Liberals, man, liberalism.
They said that wasn't going to be the case.
Yeah, they told us that that wasn't going to be the case, but our conservative viewpoint and they basically came out and said we were racist because we called some Muslims Islamo-fascists. And we don't extend that to all Muslims. We know there are some peaceful Muslims. They're still going to hell.
We know some peaceful Muslims personally.
Yeah,
actually.
but I mean, the point is that there are I don't know of anybody that's not all Muslims are terrorists, but all terrorists are Muslim. With the exception of the one white guy that blew up the Oklahoma City thing that all the liberals have to bring up immediately because that's the only defense they have.
If he even is the guy that blew it up.
Exactly. It was probably the Islamo-fascists behind that. Now, I've got another question here from the chat room. Is America going to be a big part in the end times? What do you think of that, Bill?
Well, I think it probably will. I think, of course, right now we are, quote-unquote, the world's only superpower, and I think we're very close to the end. So, and I think the fact that we are, supporting Israel, sort of, and the fact that I think we have a part in this destiny. Yes, I really do. I think that we have done some very bad things. I think in many ways we are almost like Babylon.
Oh yeah.
But yet, I don't believe we are prophetically Babylon. I think that in my mind, it's very clear that Babylon is Rome, and but I do think that we have really committed grievous sins as a nation, and I think we're going to have the wrath of God poured out on us at some point. But unless we have a mighty revival, but over the decades, America has probably sent more missionaries out, more Bibles out. Has really done a tremendous amount of good for the gospel of Yeshua, of Jesus Christ, in the 200 and some years of its existence. So I think right now, the way I look at it is we're kind of coasting. We're coasting on the righteousness and the zeal and the prayers of our ancestors.
Or waiting on that past consideration there. It's a sad state of things. We're going to have to take a break real quick here, Bill.
Yes.
But this is the last break of the night. So, guys, call in with your questions here, 877-722-7382. That number again, 877-SCARE-YOU2, or locally.
Remember when paranormal radio used to be open to New Age ideas and every possible form of spiritual enlightenment?
It's a religion based on the understanding of consciousness, the understanding of nature, in particular fertility laws.
To my spirit guides are those who have passed over. And, I've always been able to see colors around people, which I've known now to be called auras.
Maybe coming to the close of one kind of psychic life, and I very much believe that this was what the Maya were really trying to talk about.
Well, we're not putting up with that. World of the Unexplained. Conservative paranormal talk. Big on God. Big on Guns with your hosts Jay Scott and Trent Lackey. Heard Mondays live from 8 to 10 Eastern on Planet Paranormal Radio.
Hey guys, welcome back to World of the Unexplained, and I just want to make a quick mention before we spend our last half hour with Bill tonight, that Bill Schnoebelen is going to be on our Out of Darkness tour. Go to outofdarknesstour.com. That's www.outofdarknesstour.com. He is going to be there with John Zaffis, myself, and the Wotu Gang, Laura Placeris, Full Moon Radio, Terry Bain, author of Actual Factual Dracula, Dr. Alvin Prophet, is going to be there as well. He's a professor up. Where's he at now?
I think it's in
App.
I think it's App.
Yeah, that's right. He went from Western Carolina to Appalachian State.
Still up in the hills.
And the tickets are only $50. Now, if you want the VIP tickets to have dinner with us, those are $75. Guys, we're not trying to make a lot of money here. We're going to have this thing if we can sell 25 tickets, and we've only sold a few, so we really need you guys to sign up now. Use that tax money for something good. Anyway, so
come see us in Greensboro.
We're not making any money. We're just making enough to fly Bill out, to fly John out, and to make sure we can afford the space to rent. We're not making any money here. We're just trying to, what's left over, obviously, we would love to have, but we're, 25 is the bare minimum that we can sell to even do this, because otherwise, 3 people show up, well, obviously there'll be more people there at the convention we'll have more speakers than people at the convention, and that's just going to be bad for everyone involved. So please go there and sign up now. You can do it by PayPal. That's outofdarknesstour.com. And also check out our cruise coming up in October. That's at paranormalcruise.com. We're teaming up with Joshua P. Warren and the Lemur team, and I'll give you more on that later. Anyway, Bill, thanks for being with us. Sorry about my little plugs there. I just had to get that out of my system.
That's okay. I'd just like to take an opportunity to say hi to Stephanie and Michael Ralph, who are the people behind the Interview with an Ex-Vampire DVD, and it's been a real privilege to know them and work with them, and I know they're listening tonight, so Yahweh bless you guys, and I would really encourage all your listeners to go and check out the Interview with an Ex-Vampire DVD. It's DVDs, I should say. It's really quite an experience.
Oh, it is. And there's 9 hours, I think, total. It's been a while since I've seen it.
Yeah, it's 9 hours.
Yeah.
Nine separate.
9 CDs, or DVDs, I mean. But you can get that on the front page of our website, worldoftheunexplained.com. There's a link you can click there, and you can grab that. And who knows, we might be giving a copy of that away, on our Out of Darkness tour, if you guys want to sign up there.
It's really good. It's very informative.
I got a question here. When's the deadline for registering for the concert? Well, it's not a concert, but it is we call it tour because we look for something catchy. The deadline, guys, is going to be April the 29th. If we don't know by then, we're going to have to cancel it because obviously I'm not a rich lawyer yet, so I can't fund this out of my own pocket. And you know how much radio pays. It's just wonderful. So, Chuck, put that money back down over there.
Put the bags of money down now.
Yeah, so, but that's the deal there.
And the gold ingots,
Yeah, exactly. Good Lord. Anyway, so, Bill, we'll spend this last half hour however you want to. We've talked a little bit about those things. If you want to call, guys, 877-SCARE-U2, please do. We'll take your calls here. Go ahead, Bill. What do you want?
I'd like to just mention, as long as we're doing plugs, I would like to mention we have a website, withoneaccord.org, WITHONEACCORD, where you can get all sorts of free stuff and all sorts of stuff that ain't free, but real good resources, books, videos, DVDs, tracks, you name it. So we really encourage you to visit us. And other than that, boy, oh boy. Well, I don't know. You want to go back to the Mormons? You want to go to the UFOs? You want to do something else?
Well, we got
you guys.
I've got another question in the chat room. Why is Satan referred to as a serpent and a snake-like creature?
That's a very good question. If you look at the book of Ezekiel, you will find that there are these 4 living creatures mentioned that are cherubim. And there's a lion and an ox and a man and an eagle.
Yeah.
They have the heads of those 4 animals. And later on in Ezekiel 28, you find out that Satan, referred to symbolically as the king of tyrants, is referred to as the anointed cherub that covereth. So in other words, these 4 cherubim are around the throne of the Almighty. And there's a 5th cherub that covers the throne, and that was Lucifer before he fell. Now, what you need to understand is that if you look at those 4 living creatures, they represent 4 kingdoms. the human kingdom, the ox is the domesticated animal kingdom, the lion is the wild animal kingdom, and of course the eagle is the fowl of the air.
Okay.
Now what's missing? Well, I would submit to you what is missing is the reptile and fish kingdom. And that's what Lucifer used to be the head of. He was the cherub, if you will, that ruled over the kingdom of the reptiles and fish. And so, when he fell, he became associated with dragons, with serpents. That's why, for example, in the Garden of Eden, he comes, in the form of a serpent. Now, we don't know that if Satan possessed the serpent or whatever, but from that time forward, that association has cemented itself. That Satan, and of course later on the Bible refers to him as the old dragon, and of course he's also referred to as Leviathan, which is the twisted serpent of the sea, and all of these different associations. So that's why there's this association. It's not just haphazard. It's because he was originally, I believe, the king over the reptile and fish kingdom. And so that's why he came down and somehow influenced the serpent to tempt Adam and Eve.
No, these other creatures you're referring to, is this the passage, I could be wrong, I haven't read Ezekiel lately, but is this the passage that a lot of people point to and say this is the UFO?
Oh, the wheels within wheels.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
That's the same passage.
All right, now I know, a lot of people believe that what they were, what Ezekiel was seeing was the heavenly host itself. You believe... Okay, so you believe that he was seeing the angels that represent these things as well?
Well, if you read Ezekiel, especially I think it's chapter 1, and I think there's elsewhere in the early part of the book, you will find these 4 living creatures mentioned. And with the face of a bull, the face of a lion, an eagle, etc. And also you find, you're right, the wheels that are within wheels. And what he is seeing is what's called the Merkabah, the chariot of God. And it's essentially the world's, the universe's most spectacular UFO.
But not the UFOs everyone else is seeing.
I'm sorry, we've got a call coming in on call waiting. That's what that bleep was.
Okay. I didn't hear the beep actually, which is good.
Good.
But but this is not the kind of UFOs that these people are seeing out there today.
No.
And we've had a recent flap of UFO activity here in North Carolina.
Right,
we actually in Charlotte.
Yeah.
There was hundreds of 911 calls, and there's actually a picture on the front page of the Charlotte Observer a couple weeks ago on a Friday that a man had actually taken.
Of some kind of mysterious blue-green disc-shaped object.
Yeah, and people don't know, and these things are just, more and more sightings are being, seen. More and more of these sightings are occurring. I think it's just, like I told Alan Handelman the other day, I think it's a deceptive tactic that's being used to lead people away from the truth,
Yeah, because it gives people something else to put their faith in.
Yeah.
If they believe that the space brothers, the UFO beings are going to come and save us from pollution and racism and terrorism and all this other stuff, then they don't have to believe in the Bible. They don't have to believe in Yeshua and Jesus Christ. They just have their little space brother gospel, which is that you just are nice to everyone and don't hurt anybody.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
And it's all a bunch of treacle-y nonsense.
A bunch of heretics.
Maybe that's why we have Klingon weddings too.
Hey, don't bring Star Trek.
Yeah, I can get into that.
Don't bring Star Trek into this, Chuck. I'm sorry.
You realize they've translated the King James New Testament into Klingon?
Yeah.
Oh my
Yes,
God!
I've heard of that.
That's blasphemy. Oh my gosh.
Oh yeah, I've heard of that. Shakespeare was a Klingon, huh?
Well, guys,
oh wow.
Dee gave me an awesome idea here just a second ago, sitting here, to drum up some more business for this conference. We are prepared to give away one ticket. That's right, one ticket. You can email us at worldoftheunexplained@gmail.com, and in the heading of the subject of the email, put ticket drawing. And we will take all these, and we're going to shuffle them all together in a few weeks here, and we're going to draw one name out. We will give you one ticket to this event.
That's a good idea.
It is a good idea. We're going to try to pump this up a little bit. But
great.
Yeah. So April 29th is the last day we can register. And those of you that have already bought tickets, you will get your money back if we do not have the event. And it says that on the website, outofdarknesstour.com. the UFO, the increasing frequency of this, and that's exactly what it is. People just have this feel-good attitude where it's like, it's what feels good, what makes me feel good.
Everything is valid, basically.
Exactly, and that's just not the case. We learned that when we were growing up. Everything's not valid. Let me tell you what, if I jump off that building, I'm going to die. Gravity will win. No matter
Gravity
how much
always wins.
Exactly. No matter how much I believe it's not going to happen, it's still going to happen. And it just astounds me that people can be so smart and yet so stupid at the same time.
Well, it's because they will do anything to avoid bowing the knee to the Almighty.
I guess we don't have a whole lot of time here, but I guess, Bill, what's your take on the aliens? It seems like maybe you and Scott might be on the same page here. What do you think of that?
Here's my take on it, and hopefully a short shot of time.
Yeah.
I believe that when an angel falls, they lose their angelic powers and their angelic immortality, but they don't lose their angelic intellect. And because of that, they have an incredible comprehension of physics, of astronomy, of celestial mechanics, gravity, whatever. And so I believe, at least as recently as the last century, they have been using that to create craft that are capable of non-ballistic motion, faster than light travel, whatever you want to refer to it as. But that's what they are. They're fallen angels. Now, they are engaged, just as Yeshua warned us they would be, just as in the days of Noah, they're engaged in a breeding program. They want to contaminate human DNA with fallen angel DNA. And they're doing that by abducting women, and also to a lesser degree men, and doing things sexually to them, withdrawing semen, withdrawing, ova, etc., and breeding and creating hybrid beings that are part fallen angel and part human. They've been doing this for thousands of years, but today they're doing it under the guise of a science fiction sort of E.T. cover, because, every age Satan dresses things up to fit the age.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Like I tell people in my book, Space Invaders, 150 years ago, two beings of light came down in a column of light and visited Joseph Smith in a grove of trees, and he thought they were celestial beings. They were Heavenly Father and His Son Jesus. Well, today, if that same occurrence took place, people would say, "Oh, it's just like Star Trek, beaming people up and beaming people down." Duh. So it all depends on our worldview, on what we're prepared to look at and believe. Well, anyway. So these angels are messing around with human DNA, and they themselves, once they cut themselves off from the Almighty, they cut themselves off from the source of all grace, all beauty, all truth, and so they start to deteriorate. They start to look a little like, the portrait of Dorian Gray that gets creepier and creepier looking as the years go by.
Right.
And ultimately, they turn into their new father, who is a serpent. They become what we would call in the UFO community reptilians or reptoids or draconians or whatever phrase you want to use. These 6.5, 7 foot tall walking crocodile dudes. That's what they become, because they look like their new infernal father instead of the heavenly father that they used to resemble.
So you believe that they're definitely not interdimensional. They're clearly in our dimension right now.
They're dimensional in the sense that heaven is another dimension.
Right.
And they come here, and yes, they can travel in the 4th dimension and the 5th dimension and so on. But they're not extraterrestrial. Okay. They don't come from, they don't come like from the planet Tralfamador in the neighboring galaxy or something. They come from right here on Earth, or maybe even right under the Earth.
No matter how much Chuck wishes they would.
I think I saw an episode where Captain Kirk fought one of those reptilian things.
Yeah.
I remember when you're talking about.
What's so funny though is you see this reptilian thing come up over and over again with people like David Icke, Matthew DeLuz, people like this that have this reptilian agenda and says they're all serpents, and it's
there's
just
a clear connection. There could be a connection that could be made.
Oh yeah, it's part of the deceptive tactic.
It's part truth. I mean, like some of what David Icke, whatever says is true, but most of it is totally whacked out. But see, that's the trouble. The devil will do that. He will mask true things in false things. And I think David Icke is one of the most antichrist individuals that's walking the earth today. He's deceived down to his toenails.
There are there are tons of people out there that follow that and believe that.
Oh, sure. Because, again, it helps them get away from the idea that they have to accept Yeshua, Jesus Christ, as their Lord and Savior. And they'll do anything to avoid doing that because their ego will not let them. I know whereof I speak. I used to be there.
That's true.
So anyway, then the final thing you need to understand is, okay, you've got these different classes of aliens. You've got like the reptilians. We've kind of touched on that. We've got the Nordic blonde god types. And they are just fallen angels before they've gone to seed, if you'll pardon the expression, before they've gotten past their sell-by date. And then you've got the grays, these infamous little guys that run around like monkeys and smell like sulfur and so on. I believe those are clone-type beings that have been created by the fallen angels to more or less be their drones, to be their, like beings that go out and abduct people and do weird experiments on women and stuff like that.
Interesting.
Well, Bill, I hate to cut you short here, but I'm going to give you another 5 minutes here to get the last word in, and then we're going to have to cut loose.
Sure. So, well, I think if you want to give me the last word, I would say the last word is Yeshua. It's Jesus Christ. And I think your listeners need to understand that even someone like me that was into a whole lot of creepy stuff, and probably more creepy stuff than most people are likely to have done in their entire lifetime, I still was able to be saved. I still was able to be brought out of it. And I will tell you this, even after I practiced magic for 16 years, I was one of the most powerful witches on the west coast of Lake Michigan in my day, and yet one lady praying for me knocked me on my tzukas. And here's the thing, that is the power of prayer, that is the power of Jesus Christ. And since being saved, I have seen so many more wonderful things, so many more miracles than I ever saw when I was a witch or a New Age medium or whatever term you want to use, that it's not even funny, it's not even close. And I think I would also say this, that in all those years of searching, because that's what I was doing, I was searching. I was looking for truth, and for the most part I was looking for it in all the wrong places. Yet until I finally got born again in 1984, I never knew how empty I was until Jesus filled me. And I think that's the number one thing. It says in the Bible, taste and see how good the Lord is. The only way you can tell what an apple tastes like is to bite it. And that's the only thing you can do with God, is you have to taste His Son and see how sweet and how wonderful and how powerful He truly is.
Well, Bill, I couldn't have said it better myself. That's good stuff. And a lot of people think that they may be too far gone to come to this salvation and this new life, and that's just not true.
No.
And Christ can forgive everyone.
People that were murderers, that were heroin addicts, that were devil worshippers, and people that have even sacrificed babies on altars that thankfully I never had to do. And Jesus loved them enough to save them, and now they're living wonderful lives in Him.
Amen, brother. Yeah. Well, Bill, if you want to visit Bill's website, go to www.withoneaccord.org. That's withoneaccord.org, and you can check out some of the great stuff. There's a lot of great books on there. There's what else you got? I know you've got some audio recordings there as well.
We have videos. We have DVDs. We have about 40 now. I think close to 40 DVDs and video teachings available on various topics, many of which we've touched upon briefly tonight. Just a wealth of information for people.
And once again, join us with Bill on June the 9th, I'm sorry. June the 9th, is it? June the 9th? June the 9th, 2007, my bad, in Greensboro, North Carolina. And anyway, well, Bill, thank you so much for coming back on the show, and we'll see you in June.
It's been a pleasure, Bill.
Okay, it's been a pleasure.
And take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. And that was Bill Schnoebelen.
Once again, a fascinating interview.
Okay, I want to go back over this email drawing thing that we're doing.
All right, Simon.
Now, if you want to be there, with us and Bill. We're going to give away one free ticket for this event, and that ticket, to get that, here's what you got to do. Okay, email us at worldoftheunexplained@gmail.com. That's G for Google, worldoftheunexplained@gmail.com. We're going to wait a couple weeks, and then as soon as we have a bunch of names in there, in the subject line of your email, just type in ticket drawing for Out of Darkness tour or something like that to let us know that you want to participate in the drawing, and that's all you have to do. Then in the body of the email, just say, please consider me for a free ticket to this conference. We don't need name and address or anything like that because we'll be able to reply to your email. But just go ahead and send that to worldoftheunexplained@gmail.com. In the subject line, please put ticket drawing. And we will, like I said, in a couple of weeks, we'll draw for a free ticket. And now this transportation is not provided. So we're not flying you anywhere, but we will get you in the door. So, and like I said, anybody that's interested that wants to buy these that doesn't win, please do so. Like I said, it's $50 for the admission to the all-day event, and this will be an all-day event, folks. This thing's going to probably start at 8 in the morning and drag until 7 that afternoon, followed by a dinner. If you buy the $75 ticket, you get we basically that covers the cost of your meal, and you get to hang out and have dinner with us. And so it'll be a pretty good event. John Zaffis, one of the leading ghost hunters, is featured on TV, Discovery Channel, TLC, the Travel Channel, many others. Got a great book out. I love John to death, even though he's got some crazy ideas. He's going to be there.
He's a cool guy.
He's a cool guy. And as well as Bill Schnoebelen, who we just had on, he's going to be there. Me and the Wotu crew is going to be there. You got to come out to see us, right? Because you'll get to see Chuck and his new haircut. It's pretty, and
we're like a circus every day.
It is. Dee's going to be there. Chuck's going to be there. I'm going to be there. Trent's going to be there. We're all going to be there. I'll be speaking about my new book. Terry Bain's going to be there, speaking about actual factual Dracula, and which is a great book.
Prophet.
Dr. Alvin Prophet's going to show us some amazing photos and videos.
And he has some amazing photos.
Oh man, it's just crazy some of the stuff he's got.
Pretty astounding.
Yeah, the girl in the window. That is a creepy photo.
The one at the church, man.
Did you see the video of the church?
No.
We won't go into that, but I'm sure I'm going to try to see if he's going to bring that with him too. That's just some really, really amazing stuff.
Have a whole bag full of goodies.
We need to get Al on sometime before that. I've been thinking of toying with the idea as well of some of these nights just having an extended hour either added to the end or the beginning, and just bringing on somebody from the conference, like have Al on for an hour one week, or what I'm saying, and some different people like that, have John on for an hour, and then have our regular guest on, because I just think that'd be better to promote it with, and people get an idea of who's going to be there and what they got to say.
That's a good point.
Also, go ahead.
Oh yeah, well, I was just going to make this really quick note. You guys who have subscribed to the newsletter, it's coming. I'm just letting you guys know.
Right. I'm messing with you. Yeah, right.
All right, Scott. You want me to taunt you a little bit about your shirt there? Your nice little red Dr. Pepper shirt.
It's a cool shirt.
Man. It's the 50s, pal.
That's right. I'm a 50s kind of guy.
What? No, I'm not even going to go there. But I mean,
anyway,
I could, Scott. I could.
You could.
But I'm holding off because.
Very good. Because I could go some places with you.
Yeah, that's true.
Anyway, so.
It'd get ugly.
It would. It'd be crazy.
But it is
what happens
coming.
when you know somebody since kindergarten.
Yeah, that's true. But the newsletter is coming. I haven't really set up. I need to be more consistent with the date, but just look for it in the coming week.
Oh, we still got 3 minutes. But the thing is,
I need to be playing you off, man.
I see that, man. You just want to start that music as soon as you possibly can.
That's what the producer does.
Chuck's like, I got to get out of here, man. I can't take any more of this tonight. Anyway, but guys, check that out. Next week I'm going to be gone. I'll call in just to harass these guys here. They're still going to run the show live without me. And we're going to have Wade Davis on. It's going to be a good show. Best show ever.
Finally.
We're going to have Wade Davis on, and for you guys that are unfamiliar with him, check him out, man. He's something
cool.
else.
I mean,
he wrote The Serpent in the Rainbow that became a movie.
Probably one of my top 10 favorite
oh, yeah, you're going to have fun with that. You really are. And he's got a degree from Harvard.
He's like right up my alley as far as his interests and stuff.
Oh, yeah, the whole anthropological kind of thing, and
that's
the
very cool.
Creatures and the different things. I mean, it's going to be a real blast.
Yeah, it's going to be great. But anyway.
But Wade Davis is going to be here. I'm going to be taking, I won't be taking it Monday, but Tuesday and Wednesday of next week, I'll be taking the North Carolina bar exam
Part 3.
yet again. So, Part 3, Part 12.
Everybody wish Scott well, and good luck.
If I fail this time, I'm leaving this state. Not right away, because it'll take at least 5 weeks for me to find out. But I'm pretty confident. I've been studying for this thing since October. Really been putting the pedal to the metal, as they say. And I think everything's going to turn out okay. But I will be calling in just to harass you and them. This is Jay Scott, your only JD DJ, now on the Omni Sound Radio 1 network, Planet Paranormal, and bunches of others that we don't even know.
All right, that took way too long. This is Trent Lackey coming to you from Kernersville, North Carolina, a small town where once again we talk about big things.
That's right.
Chuck.
Wait a minute. You can't do it yet.
What?
You got to wait until like
Oh
the
my
5-second mark.
All right, let's just have a little dead air.
No, we're not. There's music in the background, man. You can't just tweet out like that. You've got to give them time to pause, too. We got to be quiet. Go ahead, Chuck.
Dramatic pause.
Here we go.
We out!